For today's presentation, without losing much of your time, I'll directly go to the presentation. I hope my laser pointer is visible. We are going to discuss about some Odia brevets who had not just contributed to Odisha's glory, but also had played a significant role in Indian geopolitics and Indic martial domination. The title of the presentation is Kalinga Sahajika. This verse, I have borrowed it from the Mahabharata. This, as the nature of the heading suggests, this is a note to Odia brevets and their significance from an Indian perspective. My name is Soumyaranjan Panda, and this is my email ID, turaniyoverwine@gmail.com. Anything about this talk, good thing, bad thing, you can please write to me. Why I'm doing this talk? Because, frankly, Indian mainstream history is still stuck with Delhi hangover. Thankfully, a very minor population of Indic intellectuals during very recent times started talking about Indian martial domination of be it Rajputs, Marathas, Cholas, Vijayanagar. But sad to say, Odia martial history has not yet made it to their list. So this is my humble try just to share about very eventful heritage that we have martial domination. For today's talk, we will be trying to cover this this much of timeline. This presentation will be covering very cherry-picked events and examples spanning between 9th century before Common Era, that is 2,900 year ago, to 300 year ago, that is. I will not be covering beyond 17th century, because beyond 17th century again, freedom struggle, post-independence events, that is another talk itself. That will take another 1 hour. I will not be covering exactly everything that happened within this 2000 year, but yeah, I mean, the creamiest of the creamy layer I have cherry picked, and will be talking about them. So, going to the first event of today's talk, to our first hero of this presentation, that is Abhikinnu Karakandu, a king who has glorified Kalinga almost 3000 years ago, not just because of his martial domination, but also for his nobility. Known to be the bull among the kings, this epithet was given to him by none other than Bhagavan Mahavir Jaina, the 24th Tirthankar of Jaina tradition. Then he was a direct disciple of Bhagavan Parshvanatha, the 23rd Tirthankar, and he was among the four Chakravartis of his era. 3000 years ago, not much of tangible evidence left now for us to know about him. But one book, Karakandu Charai, which talks mostly about his life and events, gave us the basic idea about his siege of Champa, other military expedition, also his spiritual events that happened during his time. He became a Jaina Shramana at the end of his reign, and left the throne. He was also known as Pratyekha Buddha, or the enlightened living being, as he was called the bull among the kings. I believe the epithet in modern Odisha's politics, people have used Kalinga Sanda. Viju Patnaik himself has used it recently in many controversial way. It has been used in many ways, but he, as per my knowledge or perspective, he was the original Kalinga Sanda 3000 years ago, known as the bull among the kings, given by the epithet given by none other than Mahavir Bhagavan, Mahavir Jaina himself. Going to the next event of our timeline, that is 2100 year ago. Just after the very debatable phase of Asokan invasion, Kalinga has been finding its way to re-establish herself. Came a very determined Jaina king from the royal house of Chedis, changed the map and the mindset of Kalingan people forever. Aira Maharaj, Kalingadipati, Mahamegavana, Aira Kharavada. Most of the fact about Samrat Aira Kharavada comes from the Hathigumpha inscription. It's not only talk about his martial hegemony again, it also talk about the infrastructure project he has taken, the celebration he had done during his reign. This is Hathigumpha inscription. It talks about his successful expedition against Rathikas, Bhojakas, then Satakarnis. It also talk about how he avenged the king of Magadha and brought back the Kalinga Jina, one of the very sacred deity in Jaina tradition. This is a stone panel from Khandagiri itself, where Kalinga Jina is getting worshipped by Aira Kharavada himself, and this elephant, as per my depiction, mostly be Mahamegha, because Kharavala's Bahana was an elephant whose name was Mahamega, so it might be that depiction. It also talks about how he, being a Jaina king, also was coronated by Brahmins when he was blessed with a baby boy. Also, he has done many Vedic tradition pujas, and then he has done Rajasuya Yajna, which is mostly associated with Vedic tradition. So it mostly talk about the coexistence and cohesiveness of both the branches of spiritualism, the Vedic tradition and Jaina tradition in his time. Kharavada also known to be a very who has maintained a very highly skilled naval force, hence can be fairly termed as a stepping father of naval heritage of India. This map is showing Kharavada's territorial splendor. Couple of I have zoomed it a bit here and marked couple of important cities which he has annexed. One of the verses from the Hathigumpha inscription gives us an idea about his 8th and 9th year of reign. The events of this year are something which describe the ethos of Bharatavarsa, which can be seen brilliantly in Samrat Kharavada's life or in his action. So, with a lot of enthusiasm, with a spirit of revenge, Kalingadipati, with a mighty army, went to his arch rival Magadha to avenge it. And in the way, he has destroyed Gorothagiri, the gateway to Magadha, and made it till Rajagriha, that time Magadha capital. After reaching there, at the same time, a Yavana Raja, a Greek king, debatably Demetrius, camping around Rajagriha, was stressed by the Kalingan forces. Kharavada this time had three options. One, attack Rajagriha, irrespective of the situation. Second, wait for the Greek force and the force of Magadha fight among each other. And then attack the winner. And as the winner would also have lost men in the first war, then it would be easy for him to annex both the kingdom. Or else, thirdly, just shake hand with the Greek king and together attack Magadha, the common enemy at that time. But Kharavada being Kharavada, he chose a fourth way. Instead of expedition against Magadha, when Magadha was basically threatened by a foreign army, or becoming a mute spectator between one Indian force and foreign force colliding, he attacked the Greeks and chased them all the way till Mathura. Not only chased them, finally made the Greek king surrender also. There are tangible evidence of that, Kalpavriksha and all, which he brought from Mathura. So in this way, Magadha was saved from a Greek invasion, despite of Magadha being a traditional rival of Kalinga. This is the the rock cut temples of Udayagiri Hills. This side it is Khandagiri, this side is Udayagiri. So this event or incident happened 2000 years ago is a very strong proof of Kharavada and his philosophy and his belief that how significant the concept of belonging to one entity, call it India, call it Bharatavarsa that time, whatever you may want to call it, but irrespective of the regional and clan difference, he went for invading foreign army. That shows a lot about his ideas and his philosophy. Apart from all the other events, bringing Kalinga Dina back, getting Odisha's martial domination back, this event is very close to me because of this philosophy only. Going a bit ahead in the timeline to 1700 years ago in the history, let us discuss the clan of Nagas, a very ancient, illustrious clan of indigenous people who were ruling Indian subcontinent at that time. Maharaj Shatrubhanja, known as the moon among the king, Kalpavriksha Ranasalingna also. He was the head among the Naga leaders of his time. He used to be the ruler of Vidyatavi region, modern day Keonjhar district and Mayurbhanj district of Odisha and nearby sites. Most knowledge about, again, Maharaja Shatrubhanja comes from the Asanapat Nataraja and his inscription. Interestingly, Asanapat Nataraj is the oldest surviving Nataraja etching available till now in the whole world. Maharaja Shatrubhanja, being the master of both Shastras and Shastras, a truly polymath, he mastered Itihasa, Vyakarana, Sankhya, this all, Asanapat inscription talks about it, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Vedas, and Buddhist scriptures, which again proves that coexistence between Buddhism and Hinduism was very much there at that time. Also, same statements stand very correct because he has also built monasteries for across spiritual beliefs for the brahmacharis, Vaidika brahmacharis, and Parivrajaka, Jana Parivrajaka, Buddha Vikshus, everyone. Maharaj Shatrughansha should also be remembered as a king who was the leader of entire Naga clan, who were instrumental in overthrowing the foreign origin ruler Kusanas of India. Kusanas no doubt have their own share of contribution to Indian history, but frankly, Kusanas, if they would have made it to a upper position in that time, forget about this boundary, reach, everything. Their effect on indigenous art, culture, architecture, sculpture. I mean, I'm talking about Greek influence on all of this would have been more much, and individuality would have suffered. So he should be also remembered for someone who stood for the Indicness that time. Centuries came and went by. Odisha saw many different dynasties, many kings, many queens, many republic-like government, Murundas, Pitravaktas, Matharas, Bhomakaras, Sailodbhavas, Somavansis, Kesaris, many more. And finally, the mystical arrival of Chodagangadeva himself made the starting of Eastern Ganga dynasty in Odisha. He introduced Jaga Akhada concept, the martial training centers, which is still now continuing. And these akhadas actually were very fruitful during the deadly Islamic invasions to Puri. All of them aged their glories via their legacies of good governance, state-freshly guarded the sovereignty, great economic prosperity, built cities, built monuments, built infrastructures, strong maritime trade across Indian Ocean and beyond, cohesive growth of spiritual ideas, beliefs, faiths, and much more. See, martial ability comes from very strong, prosperous, wealthy state. Without wealth, you cannot achieve martial ability. So, in a way, this 1,000 years, if you want to see here, was used to lay a very strong foundation to create that for the martial domination Odia's project for the next 500 years. For this presentation, though, we will take a very huge jump because of limitation of time. We will go to time period of 800 years ago to 13th century common era. The political scenario of northern Odisha was in turmoil, facing many challenges, many situations, mainly because of growing military threats along the borders. The northern boundary, it was Delhi Sultanate and their Turko-Afghan generals. And then in the west, it was Kalachuris who were in constant rivalry with Gangas. In the south, it was the Cholas, who just a very real-time threat at the southern border. At this time came a very wise, strong, and most importantly, foresighted ruler, Ananga Bhimadeva Tritiya, succeeded his father, King Rajaraja Tritiya, as a king of the Ganga Empire in Odisha. He was called Rauta Vilsivai, Durgaputra, Rudraputra, Purushottama, and Purushottamputra because of his equal contribution to all the sect of Hinduism. They were not just pardoning one sect of Hinduism, they were equal to everyone. This is a depiction of Ananga Bhimadeva Tritiya as per the Naganatha temple, Naganatha Mandira, Dhenkanara. In Odisha, you will mostly find murtis, depiction, stone depiction of all the kings. You will not find just like 2D paintings and all. Ananga Bhimadeva was also the very first ruler of Odisha who declared himself just being the Rauta of Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha, hence the trendsetter of Rauta concept, which means a mere servitor of Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha and consider Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha himself the king of the kingdom. Following this trend-setting decision, subsequently every ruler in the land were going with this philosophy and ruling Odisha merely as the Rauta of Mahaprabhu Jagannatha. Even this can be seen today also. This is really unique because across globe and many part of India, you can see kings getting worshipped as God. But here, the king very humbly declared God himself as the king and acted as just a servitor of Mahaprabhu. We all know how during Rathatra, the king himself goes and do brooming, sweeping in the Rathas. This is a unique concept started from Ananga Bhimadeva. After becoming the king, the very first activity he did is stressed upon the fortification of the entire kingdom. For this, very pragmatically, he chose the bifurcation of river Mahanadi and Kathajodi for the new capital and named it Avinav Varanasi Katak, or today's Katak city. Varanasi, again, the word comes from the idea of a city which is between two rivers, and Avinava means new. So, new Varanasi Katak. At this strategic site again, he built the very legendary Odia fort Baravati, which was the heartthrob of Odia martial hegemony till the end of the glorious days of Odisha last week. Vishnu Mahapatra, the illustrious minister and commander of Ananga Vibhadeva Tritiya. During the time of the Ratnapura Kalachuri king Pratap Malla, this is a map drawn by myself only, so not a very accurate map, but just to give an idea about the Kalachuris and Eastern Gangas. The Ratnapura Kalachuris were in the south part of Kalachuri domination. So yeah, Ratnapura Kalachuri king Pratap Malla was in constant war with Eastern Gangas. So to sort it out in one go to combat these attacks, the king Ananga Bhimadeva Tritiya dispatched a large army with his able commander Vishnu at the helm. The army is clashed at Seuri Narayan village of present-day Chhattisgarh, and the result was very redeeming for the Odia forces. An inscription of the Chateswar temple says that Vishnu, the Brahmin minister of and general of Ananga Bhimadeva Tritiya, terrified the king of Tumanna so much that the king started perceiving Vishnu universally all over his kingdom. He used to see Vishnu Mahapatra everywhere he would go in his dream. This is the verse: Vishnu Mayam Yatha Pratimam Tumanna Prithvi Pade Tumanna Prithvi Pade Tumanna King Vishnu Mayam. He started seeing Vishnu everywhere. Now let's talk about a very foresighted idea or event happened that time that fortified generations. Interestingly, in the rarest of the rare days gesture, even after this significant victory with his wise council of Mr. Vishnu himself, Ananga Bhimadeva Tritiya, he established both matrimonial alliance and as well as diplomatic understanding with Kalachuri king by offering the hand of his daughter, Princess Chandrika Devi, in marriage with a very brave and dynamic Kalachuri prince, Pranavadi Deva. Such diplomatic decision was made, keeping the devastating foreign enemy looming at the northern border of both of them, that is the Turko-Afghan forces aided by Delhi Sultanate. Mostly, as we know in history, it is winning leader ended up marrying the princess of the defeated party. But going beyond this traditional way of mere displaying domination, Vishnu Mahapatra took a very unconventional and a wise decision, which that did not just influence Odisha's geopolitics in that time. It has, but again, it has been fruitful for generation. How you will see in subsequent slides. How immediately we'll see now. Ghiyasuddin Shah, the ruler of Bengal that time, was the successor of infamous Bakhtiyar Khilji. What he did it, he invaded the northern territories of Odisha that time by sending war fleets over rivers of Mahanadi to defend such enemy attacks from an incoming military via river. The newly built fort Baravati was very successful. Vishnu was combat ready with reinforcement from the Kalachuris now. Successfully managed to chase away the enemy. Chateswar temple again talk about this event that the king of Sultan of Bengal was defeated by able commander of Vishnu, who was able to pull the bowstring until the ears of his and shot arrows, killing many enemies. Even this incident is described in Ananta Vasudeva temple. It says about how Ananga Bhimadeva put an end to the war with the northern enemies. A bit about his southern expedition, which was more glorious than his northern expeditions. Ananga Deva's south expedition, we mostly come to know from the Alalnath temple inscription. Alalnath temple is all the way here, little bit west and south to Bangalore. Hence, knowing how much area he has covered during his reign. Alalnath temple inscription talks about how Ananga Bhimadeva overran Kanchipuram and Srirangam, two southern India cities, and made his mark to Chola territory. His queen Somala Mahadevi, she has also made the inscription told us that she has made very generous gifts and treasures to the temple of Alalnath, and also Varadaraj Perumal temple of Kanchipuram, where you can find the deities of Jagannath, Balabhadra, Subhadra, which are dated to Ananga Bhimadeva's time, is a very tangible evidence of Ananga Bhimadeva's domination over that area. Why I have included this slide? Because just to make everybody aware that wherever our kings went beyond frontier, they have positively done something for that society or temples of that societies, which is a very great thing we should take proud of. Going to the next slide, to his son, Langula Narasimha Deva. Ananga Bhimadeva, with all his grenadier, always has an approach of defensive strategy on the north frontier. Then came his son, Langula Narasimha Deva. This is a depiction of him praying the sun god at Konarka. He was one of the rarest of the early medieval Indian king who was mercilessly offensive against the Delhi Sultanate and their generals at Bengal that time. He was a very surgical executor of tactical retreat warfare and had made glorious display of supreme martial skill by successfully hammering not just the Mamluks, the generals of Bengal, but also the joint force of Delhi Sultanate and Mamluks and many other feudatory of Delhi Sultanate. But true to his Ganga lineage, Langla Narasimha is not just a monarch with martial domination, but he has excellent contribution to Odisha's architectural and spiritual hegemony. The world famous Konarka was built by him. This is a very interesting stall panel from Konarka which talk about how Langla Narasimha was gifted a giraffe, which was definitely not a indigenous animal of that time and it cannot be found in India. So it talks about the connection of Odisha to Africa through sea route, the maritime legacy of that time. So the merchant of Africa used to gift a giraffe to Langla Narasimha, who is sitting upon a war elephant. Langla Narasimha also, the inner sanctum of Simanchalam temple was built during his era, and many more other contribution he has to Odia architectural heritage. His epithets were Yavanavani Vallava, means the conqueror of Yavana kingdom, Amira Manavardhana, means the vanquisher of Amirs of Bengal. Gajapati, the epithet Gajapati is first time used by him, can be found in the Kapilasa inscription of Langla Narasimha, also known as Paramaheswara, Durgaputra, Purusantaputra, for the same reason, equal contribution to all the set of museum. This is a depiction of him again from the Konarka, where he is practicing archery. This is a depiction of him and his wife, Chola Devi, the Chola princess, and the Maya Devi, the Kalachuri princess, two wives he was having, who were listening to wise words of their gurus. About his martial domination, Narasimha Deva initiated his Bengal expedition around 1242-1243 with the help of semi-independent Hindu Rajas of South Bengal, who were mostly affected by the atrocities of Turk Mamluks. A heroic siege was led into the capital of Turk Mamluk that time, Gaur or Lucknowti. And in a zoomed view, you can see this. Lucknowti was not just the capital, but it was their strategic location of communication with their master in Delhi, the Delhi Sultanate. Though Lucknowti was occupied for a brief period of time in the first battle of Lucknowti, but it was well known to even the Odias that once the reinforcement will come from Delhi, it will be a bit trouble for them. So they choose a very innovative way of tactical warfare, and we'll just discuss how he hammered, how they hammered the joint force of Delhi Sultanate and the Mamluks. What they did is they tactically retreated in a particular path towards the fort of Katasin, or the modern day Kontai of present day West Bengal state. An illusion was again created by the local ruler who were frustrated with the Mamluks' barbarism. And in the middle of the raging battle, Tugharal Tughan, that time's general of Mamluks, thought that the Odias fled away. Very cleverly, trenches were dug, and they made their approach very slow down, the enemy's approach. And then they also left a few unattended elephants of their army. The Odias left a few elephants unattended of their army, so that the enemy will get lured and come to the trap here, which they have laid at Katasin. Once the Mamluks reached Katasin, which is a very strategic point for defense, because it is basically surrounded by cane bushes and make it very strategically defensive fort. Once the Mamluk again reached near Katasin, a very sudden, unprecedented attack was launched from the fort itself, and then Minaji Siraj, written by Tawakkati Nasir, who was accompanying the Mamluks that time. He has written everything about this war in his book Minaji Siraj. Siraj is his name. He has written in Tawakkati Nasir, who accompanied the Mamluks. That while a detachment attacked them, the Mamluks from the fort itself, another detachment of 200 soldiers, 50 horsemen, and then 5 elephants emerged from the thick cane bushes and massacred the Mamluks. Tughan himself, the general, was wounded and narrowly escaped. In 1244, after 1 or 2 years of that, Odia forces again, with proper planning and reinforcement, attacked Lucknowti, and this time they just were there to stay. That time's commander of that fort, who was, I think, Fakhrul Mulk, He was killed. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is wrong. I'm not sure how it is pronounced. He was killed with his entire detachment, and the fort was occupied. Even the joint reinforcement of Awadh, Delhi, Sultanate were no match to the Odia army that time. After this second attack, it was very humiliating for Delhi Sultanate itself, and they just sacked the that time governor Tuwa Khan. After this, I'll just go a bit about what are the areas which are permanently dissolved that time in Odisha. This was the bronze inscription of Kendupatana describes about that time's event. Radha Varendra Evani Nayana and the Nasu. The entire verse goes like the Ganga herself blackened with a great extent by the flood of tears, which washed away the Surma and Kajal from the eyes of Yavanis, of Rad and Varendra, two provinces of the Mamluks, whose husband has been killed by Narasimha Deva's army. Just like this depiction we had, the rivers getting red by blood and all like that. Here, rivers become black. Which areas are Rada and Varendra? If you'll see current days West Bengal map and Bangladesh map, the western West Bengal is Rad and the northern Bangladesh today is Varendra. So this diagonally, this area was permanently annexed and dissolved into Odia territory. About the last one, in 1247, after 5 years, again the Mamluk reinforced with Delhi Sultanate and other feudatory kings made a very fresh attempt of attack to the Odia forces. Again, Tabaqati Nasir of Minaj mentioned that two initial attacks by the Mamluks were very successful, but eventually Odia forces with Samantarai Paramardi Deva, their leader, a general, leading from the front, ensured that a very violent counter-attack was raised at the fort of Umruddin, or Gadbandaran, as we call it now. Jahanabad that times, present day Jahanabad, that times Umruddin. Paramardi was leading from the front, and unfortunately he attained Viragati in the third. The general who was the leading factor of all these three expeditions. This incident encouraged the Odia army, and they never felt before wrath was enthused to the Mamluks. Mamluks halted their progress and retreated back to their strong zone. When I took the name of Paramardi Deva, does it ring a bell? Yes, hope everyone remembers the Battle of Chevri Narayan when we talk about in Raya Register Anangbhima Deva offered his daughter's hand, Princess Ambika Devi Sar, in marriage to a brave, dynamic Kalachuri prince. Yes, he was none other than Paramardi Deva, Samantarai Paramardi Deva. See, Minister Vishnu had handpicked him, and he exceptionally, with coming to Odia forces, leading them from the front with his exceptional battle skills, gifted Odisha 3 unbelievable wins, where the Odia forces are outnumbered by the joint great forces of Delhi Sultanate and Mamluk. Still, with his brilliant war tactics, he not exactly born and raised in Odisha, coming from the outside, becoming one of us, and gifted us these 3 victories. If it is the greatness of Anangbhima Deva, he went for the Ganga Kalachuri respectful marital alliance. It is the greatness of Paramardi Deva, who complemented Anangbhima Deva's action with every ounce of his deed. That's why I called him the fairest of the foes and yet the dearest, or more than dearest of the friends. This temple, Ananda Vasudeva temple, was built in the memory of Paramardi Deva. One trivia, anyone visiting Bhubaneswar, please have Annaprasad here, that is based in the city. Or I can proudly say next to Puri Annaprasad. The taste wise, it is very good. Going a bit forward in the timeline, by starting of 15th century, the era of Mattabhanudeva, another Ganga king. Sovereignty of Kalinga was pretty much unarmed, but it was in boards of collapsing. The king was not a able administrator. The martial tradition built by earlier Ganga kings were not maintained. And then because of this, military was not able to cope up with that time geopolitics, multi-directional threat and all. Fortunately for Odisha, then came an emperor who not only reinstalled the lost domination of Odisha, but gradually become the most powerful king of 15th century of India, with his unbelievable large kingdom, in spite of the fact that he had mighty enemy that simultaneously he has to fight from all directions. Bengal Sultanate, Jaunpur Sultanate, Malwa Sultanate, Bahmani Sultanate, and then the mighty Vijayanagara kingdom. Despite of them, he was that's why called one of the greatest Odia king ever had. Kapilendra Deva, commoner to king, also very fondly known in Odisha as Lakshya Rajaram Odamani, or the resplendent crown jewel among the 100,000 kings, truly a people's king. This is a depiction of him getting coronated in the Kapaleswara Mandira. This is his march, the famous stone panel from Kapali Mata, Bhubaneswar. He is a king from very humble background. He was born as a commoner and raised as a soldier. Made it to the highest post of military, Brahmaravara, made it to the highest post of minister, Mahapatra, and gradually become the king. There are two theories about his origin and beginning, one of which is as per Madala Panji, which is he was born in very poor cowkeeper household named Kapila. The king, that time Mattavanadeva, has no children. Once Mahaprabhu Jagannatha himself come into the king's dream, and then after that, Mahaprabhu ordered the king that next day you will see a poor boy eating leftover Mahaprasada near the Vimala temple of Puri Sri Jagannath temple, and adopt him. He is, in my order, he is the next king. Another one is that he was born to a very prestigious cavalry soldier household, the Rauta household, made it to the highest rank of army, that is from Madhuvara, as we discussed, and eventually adopted by the king and then become the ruler. There are other theories also, he rebelling against the king is there, but it talks about how he came from the grassroots and ruled all over most part of India that time and become one of the greatest of India as ever produced, considering the challenges of that time. He built an army from the scratch, reintroduced military spirit in Odia families, every Odia families, made sure that every possible able hands will have a sword and will be skilled to fight. With the Sahanis marching with their elephant, the Rautas in the cavalries, then the mighty Paikas built a very unconquerable forces. The epithet Gajapati comes from his unmatched elephant forces he possessed. In Burani Masjid, a book written from the Bahmani Sultanate perspective, it is written that the Sultan of Bahmani kingdom in a battle was very much humiliated by comparing the elephant force of Odisha that with his elephant force. It is written that the Sultan was humiliated by comparing his force of 200 elephants, that two of 2 lakh elephant of the Gajapati army. This 2 lakh number, some say, is exaggerated, but again, it is coming from the enemy's perspective. Normally, people who write their own history exaggerate a bit, but this data is from the enemy's perspective. So, lay my case in that, and I will not say much about is it true or not. Known as Gaudeswara, because of his extraordinary battlefield glory over Gauda Desa or Bengal Sultanate. He just not momentarily defeated Bengal's India size, but dissolved majority of Bengal and dissolved finally Gauda or the Bengal Sultanate's capital into his own territory. That's why Gaudeswara. Navagoti Karnataka Kalavargeswara describes his southern domination. Eldest son of Gajapati, Kumara Hambira Deva, went on expedition, and first is Rajamundry, and then Khambambettu by defeating the infamous barbaric Bahmani general Sanjar Khan, who was infamous for slaving common people. After Khambambettu, again, Hambira went to capture a very strategic fort in South India, that is Kondavidu. Kondavidu, why it is strategic? Because of its narrow entry into the fort, it make it extremely invincible. That's why it was very strategic. Once Kondavidu was annexed, that time Shiman Shah, the Bahmani Sultan, was chasing one of the rebel Bahmani Sultan, one of the rebel of Bahmani Sultan, that was Madhyalinga, a leader of, I believe, Velama. Yeah, the leader of Velama, Madhyalinga. He then pleaded to Kapilendra Deva for help. He was from Devarakonda Fort. The combined army of Kapilendra Deva and Devarakonda Fort then hammered the Bahmani forces. It is written again in Bahmani perspective only. And then Linga became a vassal king of Kapilendra Deva, hence Devarakonda was annexed. Once they made a very strong base in Devarakonda Fort, then after this strong base was made, then the Odia forces went and seized the Warangal Fort. A stone inscription inside Warangal Fort has been recovered. Talking about this incident, this is a printout of that inscription which talk about Kumar Hambira Devas, who's son of Hambira Deva Mahapatra, son of Gajapati Kapilendra Maharaj, was captured this fort. Once a strong base was made in Warangal, then Gulbarga or Kalabarga of that time was annexed. Hence, the king took the Kapilendra Deva took the epithet Kalavargeswara. After this, also they seized Bidar. This about this attack of Bidar, there are many Kattu poem, a small poem in many Telugu speaking areas. They believe this is how Kumar Ambedeva avenged the Vahamani atrocity done to them at Kambabaddu and Rajal and Kondavedu. In this time, Hampi was also seized, the capital of Vijayanagara kingdom. Hence, Kalavargeswara. But the term Navakoti Karnata, there are two theories of it. First one, that he was controlling, practically ruling over all of Bahamani and Vijayanagara kingdom, hence ruling over 9 crore object of Vijayanagara and Bahamani Sultanate. That's why Navakoti Karnata. Karnata means Kannada Desa means Vijayanagara. This derivation comes from Koti becoming Koti as in crore. But there are other deeper theories about this, which I find more relevant. That is, Koti, as we know, also known in Sanskrit as supreme. So it is known that this is backed by historical inscriptions from Arakwat, one South Arakwat, I think, from Tamil Nadu. Yes, from Tamil Nadu. That Kapilendra Deva was in control of 9 crucial forts of the core Vijayanagara territory: Kondapalli, Tiruvallur, Adanki, Vinukonda, Belamkonda, Padividu, Trichinapalli, Chandragiri and Udayagiri. Hence, 9 supreme forts Adiswara. So Navagoti Karnata, Kalavarga is Gulbarga, that's Adiswara. So Navagoti Karnata, Kalavargeswara. Because of his extreme ability and success ratio in battlefield, he was also known as Viradi Viravaram. So just to have an idea about how much big that stretch was in his kingdom, 2500 kilometers from all the way go to Rameswaram. There are tangible evidence from Munnur temples which talk about Hambira Deva's grant to the temple. And then there are copper plate, I believe, Anandavarman copper plate of Prataparudra Deva, which talks about how Hambira Deva cleaned his blood-stained sword in the water of southern Rameswaram after defeating Vijayanagara Emperor. So this was the stretch. Kapilendra Deva was also known as Sangrami Sahasrabhava because he was blessed with many right hands or many generals. His son himself, Hambira Deva, was a very able leader. Hambira Deva Mahapatra, his nephew, Raghuvendra Narendra Mahapatra, General Ganadeva Rautaraya, then Minister Gopinath Mahapatra, who led the northern expedition again. Then his grandson, son of Hambira Deva, Kumara Dakshineswara Mahapatra, Dakshina Kapileswara, was also in the duty of advance fort of the Gajapati kingdom. Tumma Gopala and many leaders of local regional leaders, be it the Reddy chiefs, the Velama chiefs, they all have contributed equally to this territorial triumph. Known as Trikalingadhipati because he was ruling all the Kalinga and beyond. Kanchi Kaveri Adhipati because he was Kanchi, the secondary capital of Vijayanagara. Brahmaravara because he was a general, highest of the general before becoming the king. Mahapatra because he was highest of the minister, Mahamantri before becoming the king. Randhiraja because of the elephant force he had. Rautaraya because he was a Rauta. Despite of all of this, he was a Rauta of Mahapurush Vijayanagara. This basically how Gajapati Gaudeswara, Navakoti Karnata, Kalavargeswara, Viradi Viravara, Sangrami Sahasravahu, Trikalingadhipati, Kanchi Kaveri Adhipati, Brahmaravara, Mahapatra, Dantiraja, Rautaraya, Kapilendra Deva's territorial triumph used to look like that time. This is today's Odisha, and this was his territorial triumph. Despite of enemies from all around the Bengal Sultanate, Jaunpur Sultanate, and then Delhi Sultanate, Malwa Sultanate, there are some wars I skipped with Malwa Sultanate they had. Then Bahamanis, then Vijayanagara Kingdom, all from every possible way he was attacked, but he always triumphed. He also is the one who started the Sunavesa or the Radharajeshwar Vesa, Vadotadav Vesa as we call it, where Mahaprabhu and Trinity adorned with enormous amount of gold ornaments while being in the Rathas after Bauda Jatra. This was initiated by him. A bit about Kumar Hambira Deva, his ability, his heroism, and his tragedies. We have already discussed how he has annexed most of south to the Gajapati kingdom. Hambira Deva paid a very high cost, being involved in the frontier fights all his life and not putting his nose into that time's Odisha politics, in the core of Odisha politics, and lose the throne to his younger brother, Gajapati Purushottama Deva. The last half of Hambira's life is a bit mystery. According to some sources, after getting backstabbed by the Katakpuri politics that time, Hambira revolted. The Bahamanis supported him. Initially, he ruled Kondapalli region and then gradually made it to the Katak fort, become Gajapati for 3-4 years. But ultimately, Kapilendra Deva outthroned him. And finally, after some revolt, he accepted the sovereignty of Purushottama Deva. I'm sorry, Purushottama Deva dethroned him. I think I told Kapilendra Deva. I'm sorry. And then, however, by 1484, they have fought together for all the battles after 1484. Hence, known that he had made peace with his brother, and he basically settled around Khemundi region of Odisha after this time. It is a mystery what would have been Odisha's future if he would have been the king. But sometimes we shouldn't judge history. We should just know what happened in. When we speak about the times of Gajapati Sri Purushottama Deva, the most retold story associated with him is Kanchi Abhiyana. Many of us know it. I'll just retell it for people who don't know it. It's believed that during his princely day, Purushottama Deva and Kanji Princess Padmavati or Rupambika had secretly liked each other and were hoping to be married someday. After becoming Gajapati, to uphold his promise, there went a marriage proposal from the house of Gajapati to the Kanchi. But Kanchi king, who had heard of a humbling tradition of the king being Rauta and then performing Chera Pahara, sweeping rituals in the Rathas during Rathatra, was not pretty much interested doing a matrimonial alliance because he was not impressed with this tradition. Insulted the Gajapati, calling him a Chandala or a sweeper. This, as per Gajapati's point of view, was not just his insult, but an insult to the tradition of Jagannath culture and was an insult of Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannath himself. So he decided to avenge. In the first attempt, he went to Kanchi. He went and attacked Kanchi, but failed. But again, with some divine indication, he again rise and went to attack for the second time. In his second march towards Kanchi, a village named Manika Goduni stopped the Gajapati near Manikapatana of today's Odisha. Then said that how two pikers, two cavalry heroes, one with dark complexion riding a white horse and then one with fair complexion riding a black horse came there, were passing by and then asked her to for the buttermilk and curd she was carrying. They were not able to pay the price of that. Then gifted her with a ring and asked her to show the ring to the king, and king will clear up the dues. The king, when he saw that the ring to be none other than the ring of Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannath, Ratna Buddhi, he was sure that Mahaprabhu Jagannatha Balabhadra themselves was leading the army as the guardian warriors in the black and white horse. Realizing this, the Gajapati army, who were demoralized very much because of the first defeat, charged again with renewed vigor, defeated the Kanchi army and avenged the insult that were dished out to their self-respect, to the self-respect of their land and their lord. The deities of Prabhu Sakyopala, Ma Arunai, Ma Varunai, Ma Tarini, Prabhu Uchishta Ganesha, this is deity of Uchishta Ganesha, which can be found even today inside Puri temple, were brought back with the king. Also, Princess Rupambika, Padmavati was also brought back with the king. The king, although brought the princess he was madly in love with, but still in a rage of avenging the insult thrown to him, he ordered his minister to get Kanchi princess married to a sweeper. the minister was wise to have a proper solution of this situation. The wise minister waited, soon approaching Rathatra, and then on the eve of Rathatra, when the Gadapati was doing grooming or sweeping, he asked the Gadapati to marry the princess. As per the wise minister's defense, there was no more other eligible sweeper because the king was doing sweeping activity. He was a sweeper, and there was no more eligible sweeper in the entire kingdom apart from the king for the princess. Hence, they both got married. This immortal and beloved story of Odisha is a testimony of the supreme truth that Odia can keep quiet to abuse hurled at them, but can't keep calm at abuse hurled at Mahaprabhu Srijanatha. Also, Odia's belief that strongly that Srijanatha is always leading their ways, protecting, defending the land, heritage, and their self-respect across generations. Kapilendra Deva was also known as Kshatriya Kula Dhumaketu because of these expeditions and his domination over his martial ability. Basically. A bit about historical facets about Kanchi Abhiyana. Kanchi Abhiyana by nature is a folktale, but it is solidly backed by historical authenticity. Internal civil war of Odisha gave a chance to Vijayanagara king that time, Salva Narasimha Deva, a chance to capture Udayagiri and Chandragiri fort. Initial attempt of peace with Vijayanagara was made by trying to establish matrimonial alliance with the Vijayanagara kingdom was not successful. Then Purushotama Deva launched an attack. As for the tale also, first time he failed, but then there are solid historical evidence. The second time he recaptured not just the lost fort but also seized Kanchi, the secondary capital of Vijayanagara, and also imprisoned the enemy king Salva Narasimha Deva. Yet, with hope of peace in the southern border, in a very goodwill gesture, the king Salva Narasimha Deva was freed in only exchange of Udayagiri and Chandragiri fort, which is a very liberal treaty that time we must understand. Also, matrimonial alliance was established between Gajapatis and Vijayanagara kingdom, so that peace will be intact in the southern border of the Gajapati kingdom. Going a bit forward to his son, Gajapati Purushotama Deva, son of Gajapati Purushotama Deva, that is Prataprudra Deva. Though till the end of Prataprudra Deva, core Odia territory was intact and safe. This is the time we can call twilight of dominance because this is the time when the degradation initiated. Prataparudra Deva's initial 15 years was very glorious. He was very glorious in his martial domination also, confronted invasive Hussain Shah, forced him to surrender. But again, prolonged famine was the first role to him. In 1512, when Krishnadeva Raya attacked Udayagiri fort with 34,000 infantry, 800 war elephants, 10,000 Odia soldiers only, 1,000 kilometers away from the capital, without any supply of manpower or ration, fought very bravely till 18 months. Till 18 months, and there are Portuguese traveling with King of Vijayanagar, Krishnadeva Raya. That time, I think his name was Fernando. He wrote that there was a severe fight in the outer wall of the fort took place, fight of tooth and nail. The Odia forces fought with strong determination and defended the position until the last breath. Again, condition was even worse at Kondavidu fort in 1515 during the attack of Vijayanagara to Kondavidu fort. Crown Prince of Gajapati, Virabhadra Deva himself was at the fort, fighting with very negligible army and without zero food to eat. He fought for almost 3 months. Krishnadeva Raya himself wrote in Amukta Malyada that Odia soldiers inside the fort went to heaven without a single wound, which exactly implies that they died starvingly but never surrendered. Attack from multiple fronts. The kind of understanding was created between Gangas and Kalachuris 300 years before was never achieved this time. Perhaps an assertive understanding between the Gajapatis and Krishnadeva Raya would have saved both Odisha and Vijayanagara, because Odisha was fall of Cuttack happened in 1568 and fall of Hampi happened 3 years before that, I believe, 1565. Both the mighty kingdom would have saved themselves with a assertive treaty, but they never went for it. Hence, they both got plundered. Treachery. While Ismail Gaji was driven out of Odisha, when actually Ismail Gaji attacked Odisha when Prataprudra Deva was in south, he was again chased away by Prataprudra Deva, and he was taking refuge in Gadmandaran, which was again closely besieged by the Gajapati himself. Govinda Vidyadhara, one of the minister of the Gajapati, backstabbed the Gajapati in the middle of a war. Govinda Vidyadhara mysteriously left unpunished and interestingly was destined to play a very shocking part in the latter days. Situation was pretty similar in the southern borders. Many general changed their sides, and many stayed loyal to the end, but many changed their sides. Personal tragedy during the Battle of Kondavidu, we discussed how Odia forces gave their life without food, but never yield. We have discussed how many generals changed their side. But in between all this nightmare, the proud hair of mighty Gajapati stood apart. Virabhadra Deva, the crown prince, known to be the best of Khandayata, the most skilled royal in terms of sword fighting in the entire India, gave a very tough last-minute fight to the Vijayanagara army, despite of having a negligible army and negligible food to it. Legend says that at the end, though the Odia prince came out of the fort with the zeal of achieving Viragati in the battlefield itself, Krishnadeva Rai, impressed with his fighting skill and zeal, ordered to capture him alive. After arrest, he was taken to Vijayanagara fort, where he was summoned by Krishnadeva Rai for a fencing duel. When Virabhadra Deva learned that his opponent was a man of lower rank, he felt it was an insult to the Gajapati dynasty itself. Dared Krishnadeva Rai himself to a duel battle, but still, when this humiliating fight was forced upon him, in a very cruel and violent display of how to keep your self-respect intact, to keep the Odia Asmita intact, he chose to stab his own sword into his chest and killed himself. The prince fought death over dishonor of his clan, the death of the rightful heir of the beloved and his beloved son Virabhadra Deva had a huge impact on the Gajapati. He decided to go for a treaty with Krishnadeva Rai. Again, spiritualism that spilled over to politics. Odisha in general and Puri in particular was a Vaishnavite hub from the days of Gangas and even beyond before that. Jagadguru Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Sayanacharya, Madhavacharya, many more great spiritual leaders have blessed Odisha with their knowledge directly or through their disciples. In the time of Gajapati also came another divine saint, Sri Chaitanya Deva. The king himself became his disciple. It was very natural for the king also because of all the tragedy emotionally drained him, and he was thirsty for some spiritual counseling and naturally embraced to Chaitanya Deva's philosophy. The issue here was Chaitanya Deva interfered with Odisha's politics, which was certainly undue from his part. Be it advising the king to get more spiritually involved against the king's will of attacking Bengal Sultanate, or be it asking Ramananda Rai, the southern governor, to stay back at Puri at time when at the southern border, the general of southern forts should be guarding the southern frontier with his life. Another instance, and Prataparudra Deva ordered execution of Gopinath Barjana, another governor of Medinipur, that time's northern frontier of Odisha, who was found guilty of misappropriation of a huge amount of state revenue. Sri Chaitanya Deva pleaded on behalf of that governor, and again Gopinath Barjana was not only pardoned but also reinstalled in the post of the governor of the northern division. It was pathetic that the Gajapati himself allowed such an unwarranted interference of a religious preacher into the politics of his kingdom. Hence, the downfall started. Prataparudra Deva ruled 20 years after he lost most of his the bigger Odia kingdom, but he could have retreated back with zeal of retrieving the lost kingdom. But the immense military power inherited from his father Purushottama Deva just melted away within years like a piece of ice when the Gajapati paid no attention towards it. However, in his defense, in the northern frontier, he was the supreme military leader all of his life. His also contribution to the spiritual and literary heritage of Odisha is immense. It was after all the time of Chaitanya Deva, and not only him but Panchasakhas. To be honest, sometimes we had to blame no one except the cruelty of time. So perhaps we are oversimplifying the history in a way. Again, yes, we must learn from the history and use those learning to safeguard the future. After this downfall, remember Govinda Vidyadhara, how I said he was destined to play a very shocking part later years. The minister who ditched the king in middle of a war in the north. He killed both of Pratap Deva's son, Kalwa Deva, Kukharwa Deva. Legend says he killed 32 of his sons and become the king himself. Thus, treachery unpunished become the last nail of the Suryavanshi coffin. After Govinda Vidyadhar, his son Chakravarti came. Chakravarti was killed by his son Narasimha because of all this internal misery. The throne, to be honest, has lost the glory also. From this point onwards, it is about the indomitable spirit of the latter Gajapatis because, to be frank, the martial domination was long gone. At this point came Gajapati Mukunda Deva, Bhoi Gajapati Mukunda Deva. Sorry, he was not Bhoi. He was Chauhan. He was an able commander. He, within 8 years of his rule, successfully able to restore status and esteem of the kingdom. But unfortunately, he got entangled between the Mughals and the Bengal Afghans politics. Though he was very much overconfident that the Mughals will help him against Bengal Sultan, but Suleiman Karni, the Sultan of Bengal, really pretty much right and knew that Mughals will not help him. So there are total 18 invasions happened to the temple of Mahaprabhu Srijanatha within the span of almost 2000 years. But 13 of which happened within a short span of 165 years, which talk about the darker days of Odisha in that time. In 1568, the most gruesome attack was made by Kala Pahada, an Afghan general. When he with Karni Prince, they attacked the Odisha's frontier. None of the feudatory ruler of Odisha helped Mukunda Deva. Mukunda Deva was killed by internal treachery, and then he was fighting at the frontier when Kala Pahada secretly made it inside Odisha. And at the time, he was also, the king was killed by Ramachandra Bhanja, who backstabbed the king and declared himself the king. Interestingly, Ramachandra Bhanja was also killed by Afghans. Whatsoever, Kala Pahada, when he invaded Cuttack first and then Puri. Kala Pahada was not just a plunderer. He was a fanatic with a zeal of destroying everything iconographically celebrates. He seized the deities at Puri, placed them into an elephant and took them to Bengal, where they were burnt on the bank of Ganga. Fortunately, and Vaishnava, Vishara Mahanti, followed Kala Pahada in disguise of a madman. When the deities were getting burned, he went from the half-burnt deity, recovered the Brahmas, the soul of the deities, as we call it. The tradition of Brahmandal, we have to do as another talk of that. I'm not going into that. He managed to get back the Brahmas and get them back to Kujangagada, which is in present-day Jagatsinghpur, Odisha. After this pitiful chapter of Odia history came another very in a very own way able king from Bhoi dynasty, Bhoi Ramachandra Deva Pratham, on whom there are mainly two burdens. One was to reinstitute the deities at Puri Jagannath temple and getting back from Kujangagada. And second is, most importantly, bring back the lost military jill, at least, of the Odia people. With his able minister, Vardhan Mahapatra, Gajapati built a fort Khorda, which we all know now, the Gada Khorda fort, named Jagannatha Kataka, made it his capital. Vardhan Mahapatra introduced Durga Puja or Solo Puja as a military festival in the Ottoman, not like what we are doing now, the Pendal culture and all that came very later. That time it was mostly a celebration of valor and courage. The worship of Shakti was symbolized through worship of arms and ammunition. Paika Akhada concept was again reintroduced. The display of military skill was made compulsory during the pujas. This way, spirit of courage and penchant for martial skill was reinculcated into the hearts of Odia people. Once the king was confident of his ability to guard the temple, the king brought back the deities to Jagannath Temple Puri. For this great act, he is called Ditya Indradumna. The Gajapati also reintroduced Mahaprasada Seva, which was the Chappan Bhog, as we call it, which has been discontinued since fall of Mukunda Deva. The Madala Panji mentioned that a congregation of Brahmins, sannyasis, saints, mendicants, sevaks together chanted Hari Bolo, and the king was honored and called Thakura Raja or Chalandi Vishnu, the living Vishnu. In the entire history of Gajapati, including the Suryavanshis, no other king has been acclaimed, applauded, and held such high esteem by the common people as Ramachandra Deva because of his immense contribution, unequaled contribution, I'll say, to spirit of Odia society and Jagannath culture, despite of having no major martial power. That's the thing. He was not controlling a great army, yet he did every bit possible what he could have done. In Namatandreva's reign, also invasion happened from Suleiman and Usa, who were related to the Karnis of Bengal. Then came Gajapati Purushottamadeva, the Bhoi Gajapati Purushottamadeva, who was the unfortunate king who faced most number of attacks to the temple. Mirza Khurram, the commander of Islam Khan, Nawab of Bengal, invaded Puri in 1601. Then the servitor of the Puri temple thankfully smartly shifted the deities to the village of Kapileswar near Puri. Hasim Khan, Subedar of Odisha from the Mughal court, invaded in 1608. Again, deities were timely moved to Gopala temple of Khurda. Both these attacks resulted loot and plunder to the temple and killing of common people mercilessly in order to please their master Jahangir at Mughal court. You might think that why I have put Kesudas' name in bigger font, bigger bubble. Well, all of this previous invader, at least to a logic that they were from a different religion, but which might have motivated them to plunder. But Kesudas was a Hindu, was a Rajput. It's absolutely unimaginable how a Hindu himself can lay direct attack on an Chardham temple. Even the nature of the attack was very cowardice. Then we cannot even think of how he has attacked. He came to Puri disguised of a pilgrim, accompanied by his faithful soldiers during the time of Rathatra. As everyone was busy in the Gundicha temple where the deities were at the time, they entered into Jagannath temple and occupied it. The king immediately rushed with his soldiers, laid a counter strike. A very daredevilish move. In a very daredevilish move, the Paika soldiers jumped into the premises of the temple with the help of the Rathas, putting them along the gates, the four dwaras of the Puri temple to fight the invaders. Because these chariots were helping the Paikas to climb and jump, the Rajput soldiers blind cloth, put geese available in the temple that time and made it fireballs and put them into the chariots, which again the chariots very quickly got fire and burned into ashes. Many Paikas died without reinforcement inside the temple. Many Paikas burnt alive trying to climb even when the chariot was burning. The king, in a desperate attempt to save the temple, forced to sign a treaty. The invader looted wealth and went away. Even after this treaty, in a very cowardice way, when peace was mutually agreed upon, while leaving the premises, Kesudas further killed many Paikas who were not battle ready. Because after treaty nobody was expecting a battle. After this, another Rajput leader, Kalyan Mal, attacked not once but twice. If in the first attack, he treacherously murdered one minister and killed 16 skilled generals of the Khurda king. But thankfully, the deities were shifted to Brahmapura island of Chilika. In his second attack, though he was not successful, he was retaliated violently by the Paikas, who chased him up to Katak, which was his stronghold, killed many of his soldiers. Again, these two stories, Kesudas and Kalyan Mal, very relevant to today's politics also. More than the outside enemy, it is they who we think are one of us, but are not. Actually, they are more poisonous, I'll say. 1617, Mukram Khan waged an invasion. Mukram Khan tried escaping away with the riches of all the golds and all, but interestingly drowned in his way back in one of the rivers. So you cannot call it also very successful. After after Purushottamadeva came his son Bhoi Narasimha, when immediately after his coronation, Ahmad Beg, Mirza Ahmad Beg attacked. He did not hold back. He crushed the invader, and Ahmad Beg himself nearly lost his life. The nature of this counter attack was so devastating that if you see here, almost every year, every 2-3 years, there was an attack. But after this attack, for 24 long years, there was no attack. The next two attacks were again in 1645 and 48 by Amir Mutakat Khan and Amir Fateh Khan. During Gajapati Divyasingha Deva's reign, Bhoi Gajapati Divyasingha Deva, Aurangzeb himself gave a firman for demolition of the temple. Ikram Khan, the Mughal general, came to demolish the temple, But because of a very clever minister of the Gajapati and his smart bargaining skill, the temple was saved from being destroyed. Akram Khan was corrupted by giving much more wealth than he could have think of just to spare the temple, and left with all this wealth. Interestingly, he also, sent very less chunk of it to the Delhi Darbar and kept most of it for him. The last Islamic invasion happened during the time of Ramachandra Deva Ditya. He very selflessly sacrificed, I'll say, something which was honored and unthinkable and never happened after this also. The Gajapati, to safeguard the temple during the invasion of Taki Khan, changed his religion. He became a Muslim in order to save the temple. Sadly, though, liberalism and concept of reconversion was already pretty much started by the time Gajapati Ramachandra Deva Ditya was never accepted and allowed inside Puriyana temple, though he had reconverted back to Hinduism after this. It is a historical injustice done to him, should not have happened. However, the most significant feature of in history of invasion to the temple is that Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha and the trinities Brahma of the deities were never destroyed, which continued till today. It pains it. We all are in a lot of pain when we see the temple of Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura are destroyed. But at Puri, the temple of Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha remains standstill even after 18 invasions. This fact itself talks a lot about the indomitable zeal and unfailing devotion of every Odias, be it a commoner or a king, towards Mahaprabhu Sri Jagannatha. These 18 invasions, as per Odia traditions, are considered as 18 Agni Parikshas Mahaprabhu has taken of the Odia clan, which, with the blessing of Mahaprabhu, hopefully we have passed. Towards the end of the presentation, the next 300 year, I will be not talking today because it is again another chapter of history which will take much more time. Some of the book I loved and gained this knowledge from InScreen. The image sources I have mentioned from across Instagram pages, Twitters, blogs, many websites, particular arts from artists. So yeah, these are my reference. To end this presentation, I'll say why the king of Odishas were great, because they are not just gracious at their mighty times, they have contributed beyond their frontiers, but were indomitable even at their worst. I have started my presentation with a verse from Mahabharata, Kalinga Sachika. I'll end my presentation with a verse from Kapila Puranam, Varshanam Bharata Seshta, Deshanam Utkala Smita, Utkalasya Samodesha, Desanasti Mahitale.
The attack, the 8th attack that was done, it was done by a Hindu warrior who worked in the army of Hashim Khan, who attacked earlier.
Not in the army of Hashim Khan, I believe Kesumal and Kalyanmal, they both were from Jahangir's.
Right, and the 9th attack on the temple was done by Kalyanmal, as you said, and he was.
Kalyanmal was the son of Todarmal, Akbar's time too. Yeah.
Yes, he was one of the Navratnas in Akbar's court. So, right. And I wanted to ask this question, that when you wrote that they did not get any help from the neighboring Hindu kings, what was the reason for that? Was it because they themselves was very weak by that time?
Actually, all that happened at the time of Pratapruta Deva, and after that, people, feudatory kings normally pay their tribute to a very powerful ruler who can combine them. But again, Mukunda Deva, or Telenga Mukunda Deva, as you call him, he was not a very, from a lineage of kings, and which a revolt happened every time when a new king comes. During Kapilendra Deva also this happened, during Chodanga Deva also it happened. During his time, what happened, they felt like every feudatory kings, or Gadjat as we call it, they felt, and Mayurbhanj and all these kings, they felt like, see, every 2 year, 3 year things were changing that time. They were not sure whom to, why should they pay some wealth and attributes if the king itself is not a very great power, or the throne actually lost that dignity in that time. Also, Mukunda Deva was having a very close relationship with Akbar. That time, third Akbar will help him during when the Bengal Sultan will invade. But what was in Akbar's mind was, Akbar was thinking, when these two forces will fight, whoever will win, I'll attack them, and that's what he did actually after that. So yeah, he was tangled between this diplomacy.
So I have a quick question. You explained about the Gajapati dynasty, and you mentioned about few kind of invasion and their power and all. But may I please ask you about the literary contribution of the Gajapatis to the society?
Literature wise, before the Gajapati, even Ganga kings, Gajapatis, and then the latter Voi kings, everybody himself have written many, as we call natakas, many books, many Sanskrit literature, and they were they were pardoning literature pretty much. Also, during Kapilendra Deva's time, it was peak of the Odia resonance movement, I can say. Saraladas, Adi Kavi as we call him, he was from its time. Then Mahabharata, Odia Mahabharata was written during his time. So yeah, Odia literature started taking peak from Kapilendra Deva's time. Odia was declared as Rashtrabhasa during Kapilendra Deva's time. And from there again, during Prataparudra Deva Panchadasaka, Odia Bhagavata was written during Prataparudra Deva's time. And then all the Panchasakas, Jagannathas, Balarandas, Sachidanandas, and all, they have their own. Malika was written on that time. Even after that, during Narasimhadeva, I think Salavega, we didn't talk about him today because of limitation of time. But many, I mean, Odia being a classical language, definitely have a rich history of his own. And because of this king, without their contribution, without king contribution, no art form can survive. Of course, they have rich contribution towards the Odia literary tradition and Sanskrit literary tradition also.
Thank you, Parag, for the question. Also, we have another talk on Odisha culture and the whole history of it by Preeta Raut. She is here also, and she's given a beautiful talk, which is on our channel, and it's about the glory of the heritage and culture of Odisha. I think if you could go to Sangam Talks and watch that, it was recently premiered. I think that's wonderful to display the culture and the history.
My question was about, so do you plan on giving a talk on like maritime history of Odisha? Like, was there any martial part in the maritime history? Like, for example, like going to like Southeastern Asia, like Indonesia. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Bali Jatra does make a reference to Bali.
Yes.
So was it purely like a trade and cultural exchange, or was there any sort of naval power also involved?
Trade can never happen without having a solid naval power. Otherwise, you will get looted in the middle of the sea. There was a great talk, as Tanya just mentioned, from Preeta. She has done a great talks. It is there in Sangam Talks YouTube channel. Kindly go through it. She has gone through this naval tradition and maritime histories. There are, a lot of, it can be never possible. Business and then martial domination, they both go side to side. You can never have one of this and the other will not be there. Even there are dynasties we have Sailodhava dynasty in Odisha. Then there is a Sailendra dynasty in that part. Then we have Kondinna Gotri Brahmins in Odisha mostly. And then in Cambodia, they believe that their clan started from a Brahmin called Kondinna and a Naga prince who came there and started their clan. So a lot of insights are there to it. Please go through that talk. I think it is there in very recent videos of Sangam Talks. You will find it easily.
I'm interested in history, but of course, I'm far from being any sort of expert. But I believe Megasthenes in his Indica does mention like about the elephants from Kalinga being of the best quality or something like that. So was it around the time? So my guess would be Megasthenes was around the time of Kharavela, right? Would that be correct?
Bit before that, I believe, or around that time. Yes, bit before that or around that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Not only Megasthenes, it was Chanakya. Many people have written about the elephant domination of Odisha. So yeah.
Yeah, but somehow I feel like even today, for example, in temple culture of Kerala, you'll see elephants being treated very well. But somehow I had to gather this from a history book. Like, for example, right now, we know there is a bunch of elephants near Bhubaneswar. There is a Chandaka sanctuary and all that. But still, like the veneration for the elephants, I don't see it as a part of like our cultural tradition. So when was it lost in a sense? Like, would you say it was lost at some point? And
It was lost during the very late part of the latter voice. I mean, in 17th century, 18th century, it was not lost. It is gradually started fading away. Even if you will talk to our previous generation, they will, or our grandfathers used to tell me the story of how elephant used to come to the street of every village in Odisha. And during Rathatra, Palkin of Gajapati, where he comes to do the Chera Pahara, that time also elephant used to guard him during that. But slowly, the problem is the modern Odisha is suffering from intellectual theft, or I'll say, I mean, we are seeing everywhere else than our own martial history, or history to be particular. I mean, 99% of Odias doesn't know their literary history, their martial history, their maritime history, and all sort of temple architecture history. We go to places to visit many and call them. I'm forgetting the name. Well, I mean, like Silicon Valley of West, we call now movies have picturized how Kashmir was known as Silicon Valley of East. But during, if you'll see, 9th century before Christ, it was Burma was known as Kalinga Rata. Rata is a province of Rashtra, and then there is a provinces in Burma called Ukkala. So there are, I mean. It is slowly, we don't know this. We don't know all of this, just like we don't know about our elephant hegemony. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but hopefully one day we will at least be aware about the history, if not get it back.
Thank you so much, Soumya. And I think that's why this is also an initiative to present Odisha's great culture and history and glory on Sangam Talks. I think we need to know about it, else we just, associate it with spirituality and Puri Jagannath Temple, which is of course the core center of everything that happens there. But we also need to know about the great history, martial history, culture, the trade. It's played a very important part.
What was Kharavada's impact on Deep South, Tamil region, where Cheras, Cholas,
Yes,
and that
yeah.
region was there? What was his impact on that part of the country?
He had, if you'll see the Haravada's map, I'll reshare my screen. If you'll see, this was his territory. I mean, this itself talks a lot about his presence and domination over the south.
So it was a great learning from Soumya. He described a lot of things. But I was just wondering if in near future, is there any talk going to happen for our Western Odisha, any lost emperor who has got impacted for like mostly historical by putting their effort or doing some activity where they should have recognized but they got lost. So
the Somavanshis originally come from Western Odisha, and then there are many. When it was Ganga Dandal, so now in Sevarinaran the battle happened, which is in present day Chhattisgarh. That means before, I mean, Sevarinaran, everything was in Ganga domination. So that time it was one. I mean, there is no feudatory concept. When before that, before Gangas, there were Somavanshis and all they came from Western Odisha, and then after during the voyage and all, there were when this Gajat concept came. That also had their history in Western Odisha. So yeah, that can be a separate talk. But again, yeah, when we have to again think of that type.
Yes, we would be covering that, and I think some portion of it is also covered in Preeta's talk. So if you can go through it to see the glory of our trade and our history in Odisha, I think then we'll also be having more talks, of course. Preeta, if you can just give a few concluding comments.
Very nice talk by Soumya. Very a large time period, which could like the maximum condensation that could be done into this amount of time. But of course, a lot more can be, done in the coming, in the future, in the times to come. And as per different parts of Odisha and all, my just my 2 cents. Here is our humble attempt to present all about the Odisha culture, not just parts of it, because Odisha as it is today is a amalgamation, is a like a progression of everything that has gone. Like each and every part, each and every region, each and every people have their contribution to it. So, like cherry picking, whatever significant things have happened, not just dynasties and rulers, but also different events and different others not so well known aspects about Odisha that we need to showcase to a greater audience. That this is our humble attempt here, and we are actually not trained historians or trained experts in history and culture. It's more of a passion of unraveling our heritage and roots and taking it forward to the next generations, and also as many people in the world as possible. So thank you, Sangam Talks, for giving a platform to showcase Odisha to such a greater audience. Yeah, and anything in the future, Soumya also has given his email. My email is also there on the talk that was there a couple of weeks ago. So please feel free to contact us via email if we could help you in whatever we found in our research or references. We could share that. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Preeta. Also, I would request all of you to, since we have constraints on a Zoom platform and time period, so we try to just present a picture to you. But Soumya has given a lot of links towards the end of the slide where the references that he has given.
Want to have authentic knowledge, go for the books, I'll say. Part and parcel of the knowledge is dangerous, so I'll highly recommend go for the books. Out of this, at least to start with, you can start with Gajapati. This is available in Amazon. Madala Panji, I don't know where you'll find it, but it's a very small book. This is not actually the whole of Madala Panji. Whatever Artha Vallabh Mohanty sir has found and compiled, it is that. So, out of the books, I'll say first one, this Gajapati, A King Without Kingdom. You can start with it, or you can actually start with Glimpses of Kalinga History. The very beautifully written by Manmat Kumar Das. Manmat Kumar Das is elder brother of the legendary Manoj Das. This is a must read, I'll say. And then Madala Panji also. Madala Panji, it's very hard to depict or to understand what it is written. It is written in a very indirect poetic form. Kapilendava by Godavari Mishra is written in Godavari Mishra's time, so it was not very in-depth, and but you can start. This is in Odia, by the way. Then inscription of Suryavanshi, this is purely they have given, R. Subramaniam sir has collected all the inscriptions and made a file of, book out of it. You cannot find any meaning, why this inscription was there, pre-story, post-story, that you have to find by yourself. Samarika Sanskriti will give you things which mostly I have not kept in my presentation, which is about how, type of pikas, who were, how many kind of work, what kind of warfare they used to practice, all those things, culture, military culture. This is again in Odia. So in English, you can find History of Odisha, Glimpses of Kalinga History, Inscription of Odisha, Gajapati, A King Without Kingdom. All the inscription also are partially in English, like that.
And also at the bottom, there are a lot of Instagram and blogs here.
Yeah, follow all of them. They used to post very nice content. Yeah. And follow Sangam Talks, most importantly, to know. Many of my knowledge also I have got it from talks of videos of Sangam Talks YouTube channel. So a huge shout out and thank to Sangam Talks to make it happen. And it is really nice to be in an era when there are platforms like this. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Soumya. I think Sangam Talks is thankful to people like you who have this enthusiasm for history and want to do something for their own state. I think without this, it's a mutual collaboration. So I would request all of you to please follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course our YouTube channel, Sangam Talks. We are on Twitter by Sangam Talks, Facebook by Sangam Talks. So it's very simple. So I thank everybody for joining in, and you'll be intimated about further talks on our social media handles. So please do follow us. Thank you so much, Soumya. Thank you, Preeta, and thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you. Jai Jagannath.